Hello, welcome to Business 360. I'm Parikshit Luthra, and here are the headlines we are tracking this evening. Continuity is the buzzword as top four ministers retain their cabinet berths. Amit Shah takes charge at the Home Ministry. First day in office for External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar in NDA 3.0 as well. Former Member of Parliament Shivraj Singh Chauhan begins his new stint as Union Agriculture Minister, Petroleum Minister. Puri and Vaishnaw, who retained railways, IT and was given additional charge of information broadcasting, takes charge as well. A late sell-off in Dalal Street wipes out all the gains for the Sensex and Nifty. Mid-caps outperform. The index hits a record high once again. A flurry of block deals on Dalal Street today worth nearly 5,500 crore rupees. Indigo's promoter Interglobe likely sold shares worth 3,300 crore rupees. Large trades also in IRB Infra and Honasa Consumer, the promoter of Mama Earth. The United Nations Security Council endorses a ceasefire plan in Gaza backed by the Biden administration. Hamas welcomes the proposal, but the Israeli government remains non-committal. Israeli forces launch fresh strikes, allegedly killing 8 people, including children, in a residential complex. Chandrababu Naidu and Pawan Kalyan stake claim to form the government in Andhra Pradesh. New government will be sworn in tomorrow. Pawan Kalyan likely to become the Deputy Chief Minister. Supreme Court refuses to stay the NEET counselling process for admission of students at medical colleges, but court observes sanctity of the exam has been affected and asks the National Testing Agency to respond. Multiple cases have been filed about grace marks for select students and allegations of paper leaks. Apple partners with OpenAI and makes a big artificial intelligence push. ChatGPT will be integrated with all the new Apple devices. Elon Musk threatens to ban Apple products at his companies, calling the partnership an unacceptable security violation. It's not a reboot, but rather a refresh. The new NDA 3 government gets going. Prime Minister Modi signalled a continuity in portfolio allocation and retained his party colleagues in key ministries. Amit Shah took charge at the Home Ministry this morning. He also retains the Ministry of Cooperation. S. Jaishankar, who retained the External Affairs Ministry, took charge as well. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, after a long innings as Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, started his new stint as Union Agriculture Minister. Manohar Lal Khattar, the former Haryana Chief Minister, took charge at the Power Ministry. He is also in charge of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Hardeep Singh Puri, who retains the Petroleum Ministry, took charge as well. It was also the first day in the Health Ministry for BJP President JP Nadda. Vaishnaw, who retained Railways, IT and was given additional charge of information broadcasting, took charge as well. Ministers from BJP's alliance partners took charge. Chirag Paswan is India's food processing minister, a ministry once held by his father, late Ram Vilas Paswan. Rajiv Ranjan Singh of the JDU took charge at the Panchayati Raj Ministry. India's new MSME minister, Jitan Ram Manjhi, took charge also. And Shireen Bhan is joining us now live. Shireen, continuity is the theme for Modi 3.0. Busy days ahead for the government with the budget now just a month away.
Well, that's right, Parikshit. As we've been reporting here, it is not just continuity, but it is essentially a refresh as far as Modi 3.0 is concerned. As you pointed out there, and you listed out many of the key ministries, we continue to see the same people helming those ministries, whether it is home or finance or commerce. The notable inclusions include, of course, people like Shivraj Singh Chauhan, who has now made it to the center. He gets two significant portfolios, agriculture and rural development. We're here at the CNBC-TV18 SME Awards, and I have to say that one is picking up a sense of disappointment in the room, because if the expectation was that perhaps there would have been greater alignment linking the SME sector, which in many ways is considered the backbone of India's economy, to the core ministries of commerce, perhaps. But what has happened instead is you've got Jitin Ram Manjhi and MOS as Shobha Karandale looking at the MSME space. So the expectation was that perhaps it should have been something given to somebody like Piyush Goyal for additional charge, considering he is the Commerce Minister. But that apart, some of the other notable inclusions, JP Nadda getting the Health Ministry, and of course now the question is who will take over as the BJP party president. So it would be fair to say that ministers have really hit the ground running, because for many of them, they literally walked out of those rooms and walked right back in. For people like Jyotiraditya Scindia, though, there will be a change. For instance, he's given up civil aviation. The young TDP minister, MP, has come in to take over civil aviation from him. Scindia will now look at telecom, which is a portfolio less for Ashwini Vaishnaw. Vaishnaw, though, continues to retain significant ministries, and a whole host of them, railways being one, ITES, and of course, the Information and Broadcasting Ministry added on to his existing portfolios as well. As you pointed out, the budget is perhaps a month away. What we are given to understand is that any time between the 7th of July to the 17th of July is when we could see the finance minister rise to present her 7th budget. Remember, the interim budget was, as we were calling it, Nirmala Sitharaman Super 6. It is now going to be the 7th budget for the finance minister. This will be a full budget. In terms of prioritization, we'll get Timsy to talk about what the government intends to do from here on. Remember, we did have the numbers already being put in place, but the expectation is, as Sapna and others were reporting, and you were reporting as well, that maybe there could be some new areas, or at least additional allocation for some areas. There's a CLSA note out, Parikshit, which is interesting because it talks about whether the government could consider, for instance, raising the farm installment from 6,000 to 8,000 rupees. This was the big expectation ahead of the elections, and one had imagined that that would be something that the interim budget would take forward. Forget anything else, just factoring in inflation, for instance. That was the expectation, and it was a legitimate ask, but that didn't go through. So maybe it could be something that the government will consider for the full budget. Remember, they do have a buffer. They've got that RBI dividend, which has been substantially higher than what the budget had factored in. So they've got that cushion, they've got that buffer, and they could perhaps use that across some of these schemes. But that is speculation at this point in time. But, other important matters for the government to consider outside of the budget will, of course, be crucial issues pertaining to the GST. The GST Council has not met in a very long time. So now, under the stewardship of the finance minister, she will continue to be the chairman of the council. The expectation is that perhaps some of those contentious issues related to GST, rate rationalization, for instance, would that be back on the table or not? Remember, recommendations were given by the former Karnataka Chief Minister headed committee on rate rationalization, and this has been the big expectation, that one needs to move down that road, one needs to move down that path to ensure that there is ease of doing business and ease of compliance as well. So those will be some of the other issues to watch out for. But of course, it's early days. That 100-day plan, as the Prime Minister put it, has been put on the table for every ministry, and I would imagine that every ministry has already drawn up priorities as part of that 100-day agenda and 100-day plan. But let me go across to our colleagues now. Parikshit, Timsy is standing by to take us through what could be on the agenda for Nirmala Sitharaman in this term. Timsy.
Well, that's right, to keep the growth momentum continuing and to see that measures are in place that can actually propel the private sector investment in the economy. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is going to continue the focus on these key areas when it comes to preparing the 100-day agenda items. And yes, this could also see the upcoming budget. When we spoke to a lot of people around, they said, sources indicated that some of the areas of concern that could be part of the measures that are focused on during the first 100-day agenda would be to address the rural distress, create more employment opportunities, rationalization of rates under GST and income tax regime, further simplification of both these tax reforms and the laws. That is also going to be part of the 100-day agenda item. And not to forget, measures to curb inflation and pushing some sort of a new measures that Prime Minister Modi said that he now wishes to work towards middle class and upper middle class. When he won the elections, in the address to the nation, he said that he would now like to come up with measures to address concerns of middle class and upper middle class. So all of these are going to be the focus areas. And yes, most importantly, farmers, poor, women, the focus continues of this government even in Modi 3.0.
Ashwini Vaishnaw will be in charge of the growth engines of the rail sector once again. Rail stocks like RVNL, IRFC and Ercon rallied in trade today. Vaishnaw also retains the Electronic and IT Ministry and is given additional charge of the I&B Ministry as well. Ashwin Kumar joining us now from curbing railways deficit flap to promoting semicon fabs. Vaishnaw has a lot on his plate.
Well, Ashwini Vaishnaw reassuming charge as the Minister for Electronics and IT just this morning. This will be his second stint at the helm of the IT Ministry, and here are 5 things that will be topmost on his mind. Number 1, AI. The industry is talking about it aggressively. He's talking about integration of AI. The ministry will be looking at integration of this AI in a way that it can be transformed into a digital good, number 1. And number 2, what will a regulatory framework for AI look like? That's 1. Number 2, the semiconductor mission off to a flying start. The likes of Micron, likes of Tata expressing interest, investing money, setting up fabs in India. What does the second leg of the semiconductor mission journey look like? That's something that Ashwini Vaishnaw will have to focus on. Number 3, electronics manufacturing. Again, off to a flying start with the mobile phone industry. Now the industry is talking about replacing it with import substitution, with export manufacturing. And that's something that's a demand coming in, not just for mobile phones, but also for the larger IT hardware and telecom technology space. So another key area of focus for Ashwini Vaishnaw. Number 4, DPDP Act ratified by the Parliament. The rules, however, have not been notified. We're still awaiting the rules. We're still awaiting a framework for data security. That is something that is urgent, that will be pressing on his agenda. And finally, number 5, the IT Act has been in effect for a large part of the last 20 odd years. We're now looking at the next piece of legislation that will replace the Information Technology Act. Again, it will have implications for all players who have any form of digital presence, and the Digital India Act will again be the next key piece of legislation coming out of the Ministry of Electronics and IT. So 5 points here for Ashwini Vaishnaw to focus on as he assumes charge at the helm of the IT Ministry.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अपने पहले ही कार्यभार के पहले ही दिन गरीबों को समर्पित फैसले लिए हैं, किसानों को समर्पित फैसले लिए हैं, नौजवानों के लिए एक बहुत मजबूत नींव खड़ी करनी है और हमारी नारी शक्ति माँ और बहनों के लिए जो एक एम्पावरमेंट की सरकार रही है 10 वर्षों की, उसी भावना के साथ सेवा करेंगे.
India's youngest ever cabinet minister and Telugu Desam Party MP Ram Mohan Naidu takes off on a new stint as the civil aviation minister. My colleague Danish Anand spoke to him to get a sense of his priorities for the sector.
We have been joined by Sir Ram Mohan Naidu with the new civil aviation minister. So as the new civil aviation minister, what would be your key priorities for the entire aviation sector?
Well, definitely it's a big responsibility, civil aviation ministry. My priority would be to do justice, and also coming from Andhra Pradesh, there are a lot of big ticket projects pending in the state of Andhra Pradesh, especially for the last 5 years. So definitely I would like to take that also as priority, and I'll keep the common man at the core. The problems that he is facing, we would like to address his grievances, address it in a very speedy manner. So there are a lot of things at work. I still have to take charge. So once I take charge, I'm going to do review meetings. I will take the line of Mr. Modi ji, how he is creating a 100-day plan. The Prime Minister is always talking about the vision for the country and all. So I would like to instill that in the Civil Aviation Ministry and take it forward.
So very lastly, just for the ease of the common man, we are seeing that the air ticket prices are quite high these days. So how do you plan to bring them down, although the ticket prices do not come under the purview?
So since yesterday, since I've taken charge, the biggest concern that has been coming up to me is the ticket prices also. Like I said, once I take charge, I'm going to review the situation on this thing where the prices is a concern, and I have to talk with a lot of other people also. I'm not the expert in this right now. I've been given the ministry, but I'll need to take some time to talk about this. But once I get a control about how things are functioning, definitely whatever decision I would be taking, or our department would be taking, our government would be taking, would be in favor of the common man.
All right, so Danish Anand speaking there to Ram Mohan Naidu, the new aviation minister, who said that tackling high ticket prices is going to be a priority for him, and he will look at ways with different stakeholders to bring relief to the common man. We're going to take a short break here on CNBC-TV18, but coming up, a flurry of block deals on Dalal Street today worth nearly 5,500 crore rupees. More details when we return. Hello, welcome to Business 360. Time to take stock of the day's market action. Dalal Street saw a sharp fall in the last hour of trade to end off highs. Nifty and Sensex ended flat. Financials remained a major drag, with ICICI Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank being the top losers. Meanwhile, mid-caps outperformed the index, hit a record high for the second straight session and closed nearly 1% higher. Dalal Street saw a flurry of block deals worth nearly 5,500 crore rupees. Today, Vivek Iyer is here with all the details.
Well, that's right. All throughout the week, this week as well as last week, we've been highlighting about how so many blocks have happened. Today, we've seen another 3 large block deals happen. First one was Indigo or Interglobe Aviation. So far, it was the Gangwal family that was selling stake. Today, if you see, it was the current existing promoter, that is Interglobe Enterprises, selling close to 2% of the total equity. Remember, they held over 37.7% stake at the end of FY24. So the total deal size today is almost 3,300 crore rupees. So quite a large block happening as far as Interglobe is concerned. Stock ended almost 4% lower. The other stock was IRB Infra. This is quite interesting because just a couple of weeks ago, you saw the promoter entity sell almost 2% stake. Along with that, today Sintra, which is a ferrovial affiliate, the Italian-based company, they have sold close to 5% in the company today. They held 24.86% stake at the end of FY24, so almost a 1,900 crore block coming in. And even after today, their stake slips below 20%. And lastly, Honasa Consumer, 2 strategic investors are partially paid their stake. Fireside Ventures as well as Sofina Ventures, they held 5.3% and 6.16% stake respectively at the end of FY24. Today, both of them have paid 1% stake. The total size of the block that exchange hands today was over 270 crore. All 3 of the stocks ended, in the red today.
And international traffic to and from India has surged over the last few years. This has every international airline asking for access to a larger piece of the pie. But CNBC-TV18's Danish Anand reports that the request for more bilaterals is being met by resistance from some Indian airlines.
Indian aviation is booming, especially with more Indians looking to fly abroad and more foreigners interested in visiting India. This growing demand makes bilateral agreements or bilaterals a factor for potential growth, because these government-to-government agreements determine how much access a designated foreign airline gets to Indian skies and vice versa. India and the UAE, for instance, have a decade-long agreement that allows its flag carrier Emirates to bring in 66,000 people per week from Dubai. Emirates wants this number to increase and hopes it will happen soon.
The arguments for increased frequency, both from the Indian carriers and from Emirates, is absolutely clear. Whatever happens, as those airlines have dropped away and others have stepped in, the capacity is taken up. It's now at maximum capacity. It's been like that for years. So that tells you that you need to increase capacity. After all, the relationship between India and the UAE and India and Dubai is something that is really a strong story. And I think it's only a question of time before the Indian government hopefully relents and says, look, let's have a talk about this in a grown-up manner.
Emirates has been asking for an additional 50,000 seats per week for the last 5 years, but it's not certain the Indian government's ask for a 4:1 seat sharing ratio, meaning 4 outbound seats for every 1 inbound seat will work.
The Indian government needs to take a good hard look at that position. They cannot dictate this kind of 4-to-1 aeropolitical demands across the markets, not just Dubai or anywhere else, or in the markets they go to. What they'll find themselves is isolated because, you know, I do not know any country will accept that kind of respite. I cannot see them doing that to the Chinese or the Russians or the Europeans. It won't happen. So why would they start with us?
Airlines in India are divided on how the bilateral agreements can be expanded. Air India and SpiceJet feel that West Asian countries should not be given more seats. Air India CEO Campbell Wilson said, and I quote, "Air India is investing in ordering aircraft and opening up the Indian market to foreign airlines will put our investment at risk. Indian carriers have recently ordered more than 1,000 aircraft. We have an appetite for more. We are committing to that on the basis that there would be an economic return to that investment, which, if you add it all, is well over $100 billion. If the rug is pulled out from under us and if we can't fly those aircraft, we will not take those planes." SpiceJet CEO Ajay Singh says bilaterals could hinder India developing its own hubs. He says the government must focus on ensuring that Indian hubs are not residing in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia. The beneficiary of that would be all airlines. All airlines should make sure that Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru and Hyderabad become hubs and start to take a portion of the traffic that currently goes via Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Singapore. But airlines like Indigo and Akasa disagree. Indigo CEO Peter Elber says bilateral rights should be looked at in a holistic way. You should not put them in the same basket. It depends on what the situation is between different countries. Akasa's founder and CEO Vinay Dubey says, and I quote, "We have got a very strong aviation ministry. They want to do the right thing for India, and the right thing for India is never a 0-1 state as far as the Middle East is concerned." With the new government set to take charge soon, airlines hope that the new aviation minister will take up the bilateral air services agreement issue on priority. Because India's stance will determine the strategy airlines in India with international ops and international airlines looking to add India to their flight path will adopt to grow in India. In New Delhi, this is Danish Anand for CNBC-TV18.
All right, thanks Danish for reporting on that story for us. Now, moving on, in international news, the United Nations Security Council has endorsed a ceasefire plan in Gaza backed by the Biden administration. Hamas has welcomed the proposal, but the Israeli government continues to remain non-committal. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have launched fresh strikes, allegedly killing 8 people, including children, in a residential complex. France's political leaders are preparing for snap elections after President Emmanuel Macron dissolved the parliament. The move was in response to a big defeat by rival Marine Le Pen's national rally in the European Parliament vote. Macron called his decision serious and heavy, but added that it was an act of confidence in the French people. According to exit polls, the far-right party was on track to win 32% of the votes. The 2 rounds of voting will take place on the 30th of June and the 7th of July. And that's a wrap on Business 360. But as we go, here's a quick note. A daily wrap of the top headlines will hit your inbox every day before you call it a night. CNBC TV18's daily newsletter on LinkedIn featuring the top 10 stories on markets, corporate updates, economic insights and financial highlights. So subscribe now and get the CNBC TV18 edge. The news continues after this short break.